Yes. I didn't get this. Did you ask me or did you ask the group?
No, no, I sent it to the group so you can see it.
Okay. If it is
The
a
second, the second
question,
equation.
I will check. Okay, what is it, and I will reply you after
Okay.
this. Okay, shall I have to start?
Okay.
Do you want me to start?
Yes.
Yes, you can start, Prof. You can start.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. Sorry, I'm sorry. You said we are going to on the exam. It's going to be everything
Yes.
from the beginning.
Yes, because theoretical part is included with applications, and if it is not exercise, then you will have problem. You will not understand what you are going to do, because international economics is not only calculation or is not only theory. You have to combine everything and interpret the data. Therefore, such classes should be evaluated with the background. You understand? It is not like a high school or classes or lectures or courses. You have to combine everything that you know. If let's say in mathematics, if you exercise in the first year the four calculation, summation, subtraction, multiply, and division, and after then you have some other applications with two binomials or three then you have to know everything from the first. You understand? This is how it is going to be. Therefore, if you don't know Hershey-Olin theory, you will not apply the Hershey-Olin model. You understand? Or the comparative advantages. Or if you don't know the factor price equalization theorem or Stolper-Samuelson, then how you are going to interpret the data? That's this the problem, because it is combined. Okay, or customs union, for example, we are going to exercise. If you don't know customs union theory, how you are going to interpret everything properly?
Okay.
Because it is combined, unfortunately. Okay, let me present you the PowerPoint. Do you see the tariff? Because we stop here. You see, I think the tariff. You see you watch now. You in your screen you see the tariff. Do you see the tariff? Do you see the PowerPoints?
Yes, sir. We can see.
Okay. We are going to the application. We are going to apply calculate tariff, and of course, tariff is a little bit complicated. So we have three different aspects to see in this direction. Therefore, it will be a longer process and application. And then, if we have time, then I will put these non-tariff measures. If not, then I will exclude, as I said to you. Okay, tariff, as you know, is a burden for the trade, or tariff is a, let's say, restriction to the trade. Therefore, if we have tariff, we want to know how it is going to affect and change the market structure. Therefore, it is better that you switch your microphone, please. You close your microphone. There is effective rate of production. There is you switch your microphone, please. There is a nominal rate of protection. Whose microphone is on? Nominal rate of protection. Nominal rate of protection is measured as the amount of tariff and the non-tariff barriers or measures on its output, ignoring effects of other trade barriers on the industry's input. In contrast to the effective rate of protection is a measure where the percentage change in the domestic value are added after the tariff on input as well as on output are levied or taxed. Therefore, tariff is sometimes very important measure for excluding the in external or foreign trade. Sometimes it is good for protecting your infant industry, and sometimes it is damaging your welfare and your economy and your international application, as we exercise in many aspects this uh, transportation costs or the other applications where we put the terms of trade and shows you how it is increasing and enlarging the trade. Therefore, it is important to show you how it is affecting and changing the welfare in this direction. The nominal rate of protection is, of course, is supposed to be a unique percentage of tax which is included into the prices. Therefore, let's suppose we have the P1 be the world price of any good, and suppose in non-EU member country, let's say in Turkey, levy our ad valorem tariff of T percentage on the commodity X, then the price of that commodity X in Turkey will be as P is equal to P1 in bracket 1 plus T. Therefore, nominal rate of protection is now defined as P minus P1 over P1. Therefore, nominal rate of protection is exactly P1 plus P1 multiplied T minus P1, where P1 and minus P1 is going to be 0, and then divided to P1. Then this will then gives you the, of course, nominal rate of protection as T, or the amount of the tariff. When we are looking from this direction, you are understanding that the nominal rate of protection is somehow is only included to the tariff as a percentage of the taxes. Let's say 10% tax, which will be included to $10 any X product, and this will make the product price as 11. But effective rate of protection is somehow a little bit different and complicated, and we have to apply in a model to see how it is affecting and changing the international market structure and how it is going to affect the country's welfare. The rate of effective protection is defined as the percentage increase in value added per unit in an economic activity, which is made possible by the tariff structure relative to the situation in absence of tariff, but with the same exchange rate. And it is more complicated than the nominal rate of protection, as I mentioned to you, for calculating. The effective rate of protection is supposed to be relies on the concept of value added on the commodity. The value added per unit of a commodity in the absence of any tariffs, either on the product or in its input, is denoted as V as a dash is equal to P1 minus sigma Pj xj. Therefore, the effective rate of protection is now defined as effective rate of protection equal to V minus V dash over V. Therefore, when we apply this V, which is given above, then will be the equation T multiplied P1 minus sigma Tj multiplied Pj multiplied Xj divided to the V, where it is going to be illustrated in an equation for the effective rate of protection. Now it is supposed to evaluate the impact of the tariff measure both on the inputs and the final products to determine whether the tariff is better to apply to the input or to the final product, to the semi-finished or finished product, so-called. In a given example, there is a very simplest, let's say, product, cement, is introduced to you from Turkey. Let's suppose there is 1 ton of concrete requires 1.2 tons of iron and 0.5 tons of cement as an input to build the concrete blocks. Therefore, as you see, these are semi-finished. Iron and cement are semi-finished, but it can be a finished goods in the market. And if you are use this to create or build the concrete blocks, then this will also becomes an input into this direction. Therefore, we want to know which one is better to buy, whether it is concrete block as a finished goods or iron or cement as a semi-finished, which is going to be as an input evaluated in the customs, in the so-called customs where we are exporting and importing. The world price of concrete, iron, and cement are respectively is given $1,000, $300, euro, and €100. Then the V dash is equal to 1,000 when we are applying this equation. Then 1,000 minus in bracket 1.2 multiplied 300. These are the inputs plus 0.5 100 close the bracket will be 1,000 minus 410, and this will then gives us 590 for the first part of our equation. And now let us suppose there are three different cases to evaluate the effect of tariff measure on the final and intermediate goods, because we want to know whether tariff escalation is realized or not. We want to know whether to apply this tariff to the input is better for a country to import or export, or it is better to apply to the finished goods. In a case, there is a nominal tariff of 20% of concrete imports, a tariff of 10% on iron and 5% on cement. The effective rate of protection as it is given in the equation d minus v dash divided to v dash, and this will then of course is estimated already 1000 in bracket 20 over 100 minus, which is in the sigma summation of this calculation, 10 over 100 multiplied 1.2 multiplied 300 minus 5 over 100, because it is the 5% of cement is applied, 0.5, and 100 divided to 590. Then this will then gives us 161.5 divided to 590. Then the effective rate of protection is supposed to be 27% for. Thus, when you are looking to the nominal tariff, which is applied to the concrete, is 20%, and when you are looking to the tariff which is applied to the input, 10% and 5%, altogether the effective rate of protection is very high and very, of course, considerable in this first case. Therefore, if inputs here in iron cement, of course, are subject to a lower tariff than final product, here concrete, of course, then the, of course, other inputs is becoming more protective. In short definition or explanation, effective rate of protection is higher than nominal rate of protection, because lower input tariff than final product tariff is creating disadvantages. Due to this reason, we have in the first case understand that the effective rate of protection will be observed if the nominal tariff is more than input tariff. In the second case, we have the, of course, uniform tariff for the concrete, iron, and cement, which is 20%. And again, we apply this equation. Again, 20 over 100 in bracket 1000 minus 1.2 multiplied 300 minus 0.5 100 divided to 590. Then this will then, of course, 20 over 100 590 divided 590. Then this will then gives you 20%, of course, effective rate of protection. And when you observe in this example where the input and final or the semi and final products tariff or tax rate is equally distributed and realized, then effective rate of protection will becomes exactly the same as the nominal rate of protection, since we know that the nominal rate of protection exactly the tax, which is in a percentage given as 10% or 20%, exactly what you have got, you will deserve this in the nominal rate of protection. And this will then, of course, transfer to the effective rate of protection in this direction if the input and, of course, final product similarly applied. And in the third case, suppose now there is a tariff of 20% on concrete and 25% on both iron and cement, then we want to know what will be, because now we have more or higher percentage of tariff or tax on the so-called inputs than the final goods, so-called the finished goods. Then when we calculating the effective rate of protection, this will become, of course, 20 over 100 multiplied 1000 minus 25 over 100 in bracket 1.2 again multiplied with 300 minus 0.2 multiplied with 100, because this is the summation of this example, divided to 590. Then the conclusion comes 97.5 divided to 590. Then you see the effective rate of protection will become now 16% 5, which is less than the nominal rate of protection. Thus, when inputs are subject to higher tariff than final products, effective rate of protection is not realized. Therefore, this is then, of course, the reason that, as a conclusion, as a regarding to this example, we can conclude, or concluding remarks we can make for this example, for the tariff escalation, is observed as in a given example given when tariff on inputs of a commodity are lower tariff on the final product. It should be lower than the final product, as in the first case realized. In the first case, we observe this will then, of course, creating more protection. And if the tariff rate of input is lower than the final product, then this will be a more effective protection for a country. And if the tariff rate of input is higher than the tariff on the final product, this will cause an increase in the profit rate, isn't it? Because it will create more profit. And producer enjoy this. And in other words, reduce tariff expenditure. And tariff escalation, of course, here is realized, is a common feature of the developed countries' tariff structure. In less developed countries, export of raw materials is supported by the government. Therefore, this creates an advantage for developed countries to import, especially from African countries, where they are mostly the raw material exporter from the less developing world I mentioned here, towards to the Union, towards to the EU, European Union, and tariff rate on input products are much lower than the tariff rates on the final product. This is the reason that the, of course, rich and, of course, large-scale producers enjoying to buy or import from African countries this raw material, because it is very highly protective, because in the Union there is almost zero tariff on this kind of tariff. At the end of the day, this will then create more protection for their products. And of course, the non-member African countries or Asian countries here is somehow is exercising some retarded trade activities and relation with the world. Effective rate of protection, as I mentioned to you, is the impact of tariff is often different from its stated amount. And the effective rate measures the total increase in domestic production that the tariff makes possible compared to free trade. And domestic producers may use imported inputs or intermediate goods subject to various tariffs, which affect the calculation. And effective rate of protection when tariff rates are low on raw materials and components but high on finished goods, the effective rate on finished goods is actually much higher than it appears from the nominal rate. And this is then the reason, as I mentioned to you, most of the developing countries are subjected to raw material exportation, and the, of course, developed world enjoy this import towards their country because it is not a problem for their market structure. And avoiding and postponing tariffs, production sharing and special treatment for foreign assembly using domestic components, bonded warehouse and foreign trade zones is also illustrated. Tariff and welfare effect is, of course, becoming another problem in the economics. This was the first case for introducing you to see how the tariff is affecting and changing the economy. Now we are looking to the other side of the tariff or the tax to evaluate now the consumer side and the producer side. The consumer surplus and producer gain is going to be subjected here, and we are going to evaluate now the consumer effect and producer effect, whether it is contributing or damaging to the consumer welfare or producer gain. The difference between the price buyers would be willing to pay and what they actually pay. And the producer surplus, the revenue producers receive above the minimum amount required to induce them to produce a good. As you are observing here, consumer surplus is this triangle where it is right angled given to you, and as much as it is increasing and enlarging towards to the zero, towards to the origin, it is increasing the welfare. And as much as increasing up towards to the 4, towards to the B, this will then reduces the welfare of the consumer. And when we are looking to the second graphic, the producer gain is going to be zero when it is started with B, and as much as the price is going up, the producer gain is here is enlarging and increasing as much as the price goes up. This will then enlarge and increase the producer gain. And therefore, there is a contradiction between consumer and producer surplus. And this is in the problem, and we want to evaluate and we want to apply an example to see whether it is really damaging both parties or it is contributing any. And we want also put into this example the government, so-called the state, to see how it is affecting and changing the market. In, of course, a very, very popular statement, beggar neighbor policy is, of course, not good, because imposing an optimum tariff is a bigger neighbor policy that could invite retaliation, because when you are applying tariff, vice versa, the let's say cooperative country or the country that you are applying this tariff will responding to you with this same manner. And this is then, of course, another problem in the international trade, because this will then bring the zero-sum game. If you know the game theory, as much as you are increasing your your tariff rate, this will reduce the effect of the welfare, and this will then reduce the capacity of the trade bilaterally, because you increase the tariff rate, your rivals will increase also, or your cooperative country or your relation country, your components, your international transaction countries will also responding to you similar manner. And this is then, of course, another problem. After all, if the United States were to impose an import tariff or optimal tariff of 25% on its imports, why should Japan or European Union not levy tariff to 40 or 50 or 25%? This is the problem, because as much as you are increasing your tariff and excluding preventing the international trade access towards to your country, similar will be realized for your product, isn't it? This has happened recently in the America, in the United States. They apply the tariff to the South Korea and Turkey and some others, and they are responding similarly. And this is then, of course, the problem in the international trade, because this is not a bringing hand and solving the problems when you are applying tariff. On the other side, when we are looking to the tariff effect, we are understanding that tariff is sometimes creating good and sometimes causing bad. Let's see in a simplest small nation model. In figure below, a small nation before trade produces auto at market equilibrium point at E, as determined by the intersection of its domestic supply and demand schedules. At the equilibrium price of 9.500, the quantity supplied is 50 auto, and the quantity demanded is 50 auto either, autos either. The graphic is this one you want to see. Did you see the graphic now? Because I have to go back. This is the graphic which is going to be analyzed. And as you see, in the beginning period, they have 50-50 in equilibrium position, and they have 950, 9,500 price in equilibrium. But we are supposing that they are starting to apply some tariff, as it is illustrated here. Let's suppose the economy opened and the free trade where auto price is now 8,000, because it is reduced in the world market. The price is usually lower than your market, and it is horizontal line where ST plus V is illustrated here in the graphic. ST plus V is illustrated. This is point F, illustrate the free trade without tariff after enlarging the market, because at point E we have the autarky position, and at point F we have the free trade without any tariff sanction, tariff tariff application. Therefore, as you are seeing, when you are opening your market to the free trade, this is enlarging and reducing the market price very, very low level, and this will then enjoy and increase the capacity towards to the other nations. And when you are looking again to the D curve, where is the consumer welfare is, and in the welfare economics, in the consumer welfare aspect, this free trade is enlarging and increasing the consumer welfare from from G, E, F to A, B, C, D together, because here we have only GEF, sorry, only G at point E, but after enlarging the free trade without tariff transaction, we have G plus E, F, A, B, C, D. So it is considerable welfare increase realized for the consumer, but when we are looking to the producer where it was realized at point E with A and E, it goes to only this triangle, the lower triangle, where below A is not given. It can be any number, but it is reducing amount of tariff where it is 20 unit is produced. And this is then, of course, causing internal market in internal industry much probably when you have a free trade, but it is enlarging the consumer welfare when we have free trade. But on the other side, since we are not alone, we have our producers and we want to maintain our country's production operation process in a sustainable level, then we have to put something to prevent this considerable reduction from point E to point uh, let's say on the ST plus B line, there is an equilibrium point where F is, but on the other side, where the ST line is intersect with this ST plus V, there is the considerable reduction from 50 unit to 20 unit, and this is then, of course, not acceptable. Then we have to do something in this direction, isn't it? The free trade, as I mentioned to you, now realized at point F, as I illustrated to you, and demanded as 80 unit and produced domestically only 20 unit. This means that on this graphic, we have to import between this F and between 20 to 80 units, so-called 60 unit of product of auto from foreign countries, because our production reduced from 50 to 20 and our consumption enlarged from 50 to 80, then this will then, of course, enlarging our capacity considerably in the market, but our production, unfortunately, is decreasing, and of course, must be done. Something must be done. Due to this reason, as I mentioned to you, this 60 unit auto, which is expected to be import, is not possible. We have to put some sanction, we have to put some tariff sanction or barrier towards to this free trade, because we don't want to lose our market and we don't want to lose our domestic production. Therefore, free trade may damage our production and need some protection. This is the reason why the tariff is applied. And suppose management and labor unit and convince the government to levy a protective tariff on auto imports. Assume the small nation impose a tariff of, let's say, 1,000 unit per auto, per imported, and therefore the overall supply shifts upward by the amount of tariff from ST V to ST plus V plus T, where T is here is the tax. As you see, the second parallel horizontal line where the tariff now is applied and the equilibrium realized at point G. And this will then reduce now the consumption from 80 to 60 and increase the production, internal production from 20 to 40. Therefore, protection is good in the small nation, as you are observed, where it is bringing the market to the internal price level, because our internal producer can produce with $9,500 per unit, because they are not able to survive. But in the international market, when we join to the international market, our production price now reduced to 9,000, because our tax is shifting the international market price from 8,000 to 9,000, and this will then cause some relaxation for the internal market, and of course prevent some product around 20 unit and of course 20 unit consumed will be reduced either, and only 20 unit import is expected. Between 40 to 60 is the, of course, imported product amount, which is illustrated. And in this direction, we are questioning what to do. The overall supply shift upward by the amount of the tariff from SDV to SD plus V plus T. Therefore, the consumer surplus was the area A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and falls to E, F, G. As you are observing here, A, B, C, D is the lost. As you are observing here, A, B, C, D, after increasing the prices because of the tax, the welfare of the consumer reduced from G, E, F, A, B, C, D to G, E, F only, because A, B, C, D is now going to be distributed to the producer probably, or to the government as a tax revenue. And therefore, consumer here is definitely the loser. And let's look what is happening. The revenue effect for the government is 60 minus 40 multiplied with 1,000, because 1,000 is the unit for the producer tax. Then this will then create 20,000, where the area C is illustrated here. This will then goes to the government as a tax revenue. And redistribution effect, 40,000, 9,000 is equal to 360,000, and at free trade it is 40,000. 40 multiplied 8,000 is equal to 320,000. Then the differences between these two is the revenue, which is going to be illustrated with A and B, as you are observing here. Then this will then, of course, redistribution effect to the government and to the economy. After this, then we have to question, as the tariff encourages domestic production to rise from 20 to 40, as you see here, tariff shift the tariff from 20 to 40, but not 50. The producers must pay part of the increased revenue as a higher cost of producing the increased output deficit, or described by area B, which is 10,000. The triangle formula is H multiplied B divided 2 is then, of course, 20 multiplied 1,000 divided 2 is equal to 10,000. This is then, of course, so-called the B area and B and D areas. These small triangles are the deadweight effects, and D is the consumer effect or the consumption effect, and B is the production effect, where it is gone lost results of this tariff. And A is the producer gain, and A, B, C, D is the consumer lost or lose, and C is the government tax revenue, as you are observing in this small nation example. If you have any question, you ask me. If not, then I will go to the large nation now. The large nation, do you have any question? The large nation tariff, trade, and welfare effect in the large nation, referring to the figure 44, which is given here. This is in your book 44. Line ST represents the domestic supply schedule, and line D deficit the home demand curve, or describe the demand demand curve. And autarky equilibrium realized at point E, as you are observing here. Again, in autarky we have the E, in free trade we have the F, and in the, of course, intervention to the market with the tariff, the equilibrium realized at point G. Here, suppose the market equilibrium shift from point F to point G, while the market price rises from ST plus V, which is 7,800. This is then the, of course, supposed to be equilibrium price was 8,000, and the rise to 8,800 after the tax, as you observe on the graphic here. It is shifted from 780 to 800, and this is then, of course, the amount of the tax which is applied to the market. And after this application, you are observing here, with free trade, as I said to you, equilibrium rise at F, the importing nation faces a total supply schedule of ST plus V, and this schedule shows both domestic and foreign producers together offer to the domestic consumers. And with tariff at point G equilibrium realized, where specific tariff 1000 unit is applied and ST plus V plus T is observed in this curve as you are seeing. This is then of course the second almost parallel line to the x-axis quantity auto, which is not parallel but somehow parallel. The S D plus V plus T, which is the, of course, after the free trade amount of the world price will be added with the tax and increase the price level to 8,800 and reduce the amount of the production which is going to be consumed in the market from 110 to 90 and increase the production from 30 to 50 after this application. And of course, then here we have to calculate again the distribution effect and of course welfare effect. Market equilibrium shifts from point F to point G while the producer price rises from ST plus V, where 7,800 equilibrium price was 8,000 and rise to 8,800 after tax. Consumer surplus falls by an amount equal to area ABCD. As you see here, the ABCD again is reduced here because the tariff amount shifting the welfare, reducing the welfare and shifting upward. And this is then of course not good. And consumer surplus, as I said to you, reduced to ABCD with the area is gone. And the area A is the totaling 32,000 represented redistributive effects. The area A here is going to be the producer, and the amount is transferred from domestic consumers to the producers. This is somehow the welfare will be distributed from consumer to the producer. This is realized in inflation either. When the prices goes up, the prices will be distributed and capital will enlarge and increase in the producer side. Therefore, consumption effect always negatively affected and production or producer always positively affected from this tariff, and government is also enjoying this tariff because they are getting some resources. And consumption and production effect is again B and D here, these triangles where it is calculated with H base divided 2. This is then, of course, right angle calculation from your mathematic. And the area C is the domestic revenue for the government, 40,000. 40 multiplied 8,000 is 32,000. This then 32,000 is going to be the government revenue. Who pays for import restriction? Domestic consumers faces increased cost, as you are observing here. Lower income consumers are especially hurt in this direction, and of course this is not acceptable. And the of course overall net lose realized here where the debt weight lose for the consumption and production effect realized at point A and point B and D. And export industries face higher costs for inputs, and cost of living increases as you are observing because of the tariff, and other nations may retaliate or responding to this tariff with higher tariff, which is of course create this similar or probably the more negative effects to the international market and reducing the welfare of the world nations. And this is, of course, not good. This is the reason, as I said to you many times, the WTO attacked because tariff in the developed nation is still intact. Either it is non-tariff measures or tariff, but it is applying to the third world where they are having cheaper and, of course, comparative advantages in the international trade because of these tariff and non-tariff measures and these sanitary phytosanitary measures, which is directed to the international markets, to also the developed nations. They are reducing their capacity, and this is then, of course, not good, as I mentioned to you. The arguments for trade restrictions, there is, of course, job protection aspect, which can be accepted. It is, of course, somehow protecting the internal market, labor market. It is fairness in trade, sometimes level of playing field, of sometimes protecting domestic standard of living is acceptable, but fairness, where is the fairness? Because as I said to you, since the comparative advantages theory is valid and of course can be extended to the international market. Why then they are applying this tariff and non-tariff measures to the so-called the southern part of the world where they are having comparative advantages and resources abundantly and can produce effectively, and they are insisting, the developed nations insisting to put this tariff and non-tariff measures, sanitary, phytosanitary measures, wrapping, labeling, hygienic or pesticide control, these things, then excluding also this third world production and of course exportation towards to these nations. This is also equalization of the production cost is of course another aspect. This is another argument. Sometimes it is realized, sometimes not. And infant industry protection, it is also acceptable. As I said to you, if you have your infant industry and you want to protect until this develop, you can put some tariff protection, but there are so many tariff and non-tariff measures which is not accepted in this direction. Therefore, tariff application and non-tariff measures somehow is somehow stopping the international trade because they don't want cheap production and cheaper exportation and importation towards to their countries. And this is the reason developed nations reducing the international trade and fair trade relations in the world. And political and social reasons, of course, as I said to you, sometimes political, sometimes social reasons. Social reasons because the international trade and international transactions, I mean, peoples and individuals and labor transactions and of course free movements sometimes creating problems as we are observing currently in Africa and in Afro American people killed in America and people attacking everywhere in Minnesota. Minnesota, you observe probably in Colorado, people attacking to the local markets because one policeman killed one Afro American person. Therefore, it is sometimes creating problem. It is political reasons because they don't want to damage their industries, their economies. This can be acceptable, but political reasons, as I said to you, they don't want foreigners as an immigrant, as fugitives towards their country. These are the also problems which is exercised in this direction. And of course, supply of protectionism is also, as I mentioned to you, is sometimes is creating fair trade, is sometimes creating, sometimes not creating, is another history. This should be also discussion topic in a long period of time, which we don't have here. And the cost of society of restricting trade is also problem because it costs too much, as I mentioned to you already, because of this Afro-American person who killed, create too much social aspect towards to the international markets. And magnitudes of the adjustment cost to free trade is also another problem because every market, especially in the developed world, the wages are very high and they are not able to adjust to the lower market, especially China, Mexico, and some others, South Asian market. The wages are very cheap and very low. Therefore, they are not able to compete and create some challenging power in this international market. And this is then another aspect to reduce and create some problem to the economy. And public sympathy is also another. Hurt by free trade is supposed to be is another problem in the economy, which is sometimes acceptable, sometimes not acceptable. And of course, demand for protection depends on also amount of the import competing industry, where the comparative disadvantages is realized. As I mentioned to you, if you have higher wages and higher cost, how you are going to become a relative lower cost advantages in the international market. Therefore, you have to put these sanitary, phytosanitary measures, tariff, non-tariff measures towards to the non-member countries or towards to the international market for preventing this competitive market in your country or in your markets. And the level of import penetration is also another problem, which is also sometimes creating a problem and causing some negativities to the international market. And level of concentration in the affected sectors is also another problem. This will also create some negative effects and damage the industries which is going to be protected. And degree of export dependency in this sector is also responsible problem for this let's say protection. Of course, consumer and producer surplus should be analyzed either here for being able to estimate, because in the example I have given you some graphical illustration. Here I'm going to give you how you're going to see this distribution from consumer to producer or from producer to consumer. Therefore, we have to estimate the consumer surplus and producer surplus together. Here, the consumer surplus and producer surplus in a given example is illustrated with the graphic quickly. Here, there is a demand and the supply curve for a product, where it is going to be. The demand curve is decreasing. Lower prices are associated with higher quantities demanded, and higher prices are associated with lower quantities demanded. And the demand curve are often shown as if it were linear, but there is no reason they have to be. Therefore, we have to calculate the consumer surplus and producer surplus by using this integral equation, where you are knowing from your mathematical background, given in a demand function, P is equal to delta Q and P is equal to delta Q, and the supply function is supposed to be P is equal to SQ, and the equilibrium point is supposed to be Q star and P star. The consumer surplus is then therefore is the integral delta Q multiplied delta Q minus PQ, where it is the integration of the equation, and producer surplus is vice versa, PQ minus, you're going to subtract the so-called revenue from the cost. The first one is from cost to revenue, and here from revenue to cost. PQ minus integral of this supply equation, so-called, will be subtracted, and then you will calculate the consumer surplus or producer surplus in the economy. Let's have an example here. Suppose the demand for the product is given by P is equal to minus 0.8 Q plus 150, and P is equal to minus 0.8 Q plus 150. Therefore, the supply for the same product is given by PSQ is 5.2 Q and SQ is 5.2. For both functions, Q is the quantity and P is the price in dollars. Find the equilibrium point, find the consumer surplus at the equilibrium, and find the producer surplus at the equilibrium price. Here, I think there is a mistake with the supply and curve, and I have to correct it because I catch up this, but you will understand better. The equilibrium point where the supply and demand function are equal, solving minus 0.8 Q plus 150 is 5.2 Q, and minus 0.0 Q plus 150 is equal to 5.2 Q, gives Q as 25. The consumer surplus here is then, of course, with the integration 0.25, 0 to 25, then minus 0.8 Q plus 150 delta Q minus 130, where 25 is supposed to be calculated with this derivation. Then we have 250. And this producer surplus, again, 130 with 25 will be, this 25 will be put into the equation, and you will find this 130. Then in the integral, this, of course, 25 will be multiplied 5.2 Q, where the integral is taken. Then 1,625 is obtained. And from this calculation, we are getting this QS and QD. Of course, here this surplus and tax effect is illustrated. Here we have another example for the tax effect for calculating and estimating the tax in a given example. QS and QD is supposed to be 6, and PS and PD is supposed to be 8 with no tax. This is given in an equation which we don't have here. I don't put it here. And suppose the government imposed 6 units of tax, PD is equal to PS plus 6, because 6 units tax is applied to the supply curve. Therefore, supply curve is going to be increased 6 units. I mean, the price will be increased to the 6 unit, or either you are going to exclude it, subtract it from the equation. This will shift supply 2 plus 6 to 8, and this will then bring as it is indicated here in the graphic, which is not very clear. You see from 2 to 8, it is increasing the supply. Therefore, this will bring the equilibrium to 12 and the quantity produced to 4, as you are observing here. 4 and 2 and 12, and from 6 to 8, it goes to 4 to 12, the new equilibrium. As seen on the table before, the tax consumer surplus was ABC, where H multiplied B base divided 2 is equal to 20 minus 8 multiplied 6 over 2 will gives us 36, and the producer surplus was again 8 minus 2 multiplied 6 divided 2, then this is again H base divide 2, this triangle here, this triangle. You see these triangles here. It's not very clear, but if you try to see, enlarge it and see, you will understand. Then you will have this equilibrium. You will have this equilibrium for the producer surplus as 18, and consumer surplus and producer surplus altogether is 42, 44, 54, sorry. Then this one, of course, A, B, C, G, H, E, F. A, B, C, this upper level, B, C, G, E, H, F, all together, all then will gives you the consumer and producer surplus together, because we have to calculate the new equilibrium as it is indicated. And then when you are going to get this after tax and consumer surplus plus producer surplus, then A, B, C, H, G, now you are going to reduce this E and if, where it is distributed to, you see here, E and F is going to be excluded from the system, because these are the deadweight effects on this example, which is given here, because after the tax applied, this is changing the market structure, as you are observing. Before it was all together, A, B, E, F was the consumer surplus, and G, H, F was the producer gain. But after applying the tariff altogether, it is reduced, and of course we should exclude this from the graphic, because E and F is now excluded, is gone, is lost from the system, and this B, C, G is supposed to be the governmental revenue, and A is the consumer welfare, and G, H is the, it is given also here, B, C, G, you see, is the, on the graphic is given consumer surplus with no tax, A, B, E, C, F, and producer surplus F, G, H, where it is 18, and the government receipt 0 before tax. After tax, it is B, C, G, as I mentioned to you, and impact B, C, G is again 24, and impact of the tax is supposed to be minus B minus C minus E, because it is reduced and gone, and producer surplus minus F minus C, because it reduces the producer surplus, it goes somewhere else, is calculated as 10, and government receipt from tax is estimated as 24, and net benefit is supposed to be 48 with tax, and impact is supposed to be is 6, because 54 minus 48 is going to be 6 unit, is disappeared, because this two triangles E and F is evaporated from the system, and that weight 0 is given here, is E and F is 6, and EF again is 6, which is not known where it's going. It's the dead weight impact. And then we have another example here, where we have 40 minus 2Q is equal to PD, and 10 plus 3Q is equal to PS. After we are applying again the 5 unit of tax, what will be the equilibrium for producer surplus, consumer surplus, or consumer welfare and government revenue effect before and after tax, and redistribution and revenue effect is asked in this question. When we are solving this equation without tax, the equilibrium position is 6 and 28. And when we are applying this 5 unit of tax to the supply curve, then we have again minus 5, because it should be excluded either from the price, because this 5 unit tax is going to be distributed to the government, as you are observing on the graphic. Therefore, it should be excluded. It is actually included to the equation, but excluded from the let's say price because it is not profit, it is going to the government. The tax is collected by the government and it is a burden for the consumer and for the producer. And the new equilibrium, after having this equation, we have 5 and 30. For finding price level after tax, we put new quantity to old equation because we have to find the new equilibrium, and of course with the old equation, then PS is equal to 10 plus 3Q, and 10 plus 3 in bracket 5 will gives us 25, and of course this will be then of course giving us where the intersection point is 15 for QS is equal to 0. And the graphic is illustrated here as like this. In the first um, places where the equilibrium was 28 and 6, and in the second it goes to 5 to 30, and the intersection points is 15 and 10, and above is 40. Then we can calculate now the surpluses again. Let's see the tax effect here. With no tax, ABC key is without tax the consumer surplus. EFDGH is again here the producer surplus without no tax, without tax, sorry, and government revenue is 0 because there is no tax, and net benefit is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and K, and that weight is 0 here because there is no tax. And after tax applied, the consumer surplus reduced to A, producer surplus increase G and F, is decreasing amount increase realized because K and H is redistributed to the government, and E and D is again redistributed to the government. Therefore, this increase, part of this increase is going to government, and therefore this is somehow causing some negative effect to the economy because producer reduces, government enjoy this E, D, C, B, and consumer enjoy to, sorry, reduce their welfare to A from A, B, C, K, and net benefit A, B, C, D, E, F, K, and that weight, as I said to you, after tax is going to be K and H, and the impact is supposed to be negative BCK, as you're observing here, this negative effect. The producer negative effect, EDH here, these are going to the government because it's gone, and net benefit is not created here, and that weight is K and H is a lost and not known because it is the consumption effect and um, production effect. Now we have again the consumer surplus and producer surplus from this equation. After applying this equation, after getting the integration of this equation, we have 10Q for the, you see 10 plus 3Q is equal to PS, will be integrated, and 10Q plus 3Q square over 2 is the integration. Then we apply to this equation where the total cost is 10 plus 5. You know the total cost is wages multiplied labor here minus real interest rate multiplied with capital. And therefore, when we are applying this equation, then we have this total cost 87.5, and total revenue is supposed to be P multiplied Q is equal to 5 multiplied 25 is equal to 125, or as I said to you, total cost can be estimated with this integral, which we are going to put into the equation. Then you subtract this total revenue from total cost, then you will get 125 minus 87.5. Then this will then gives us 37.5. This is the producer surplus, so-called the profit, which is expected to be redistributed to the producer. And this is an example for understanding the tax effect. Unfortunately, I have to finish this class here because if we start to the non-tariff measures, it will go 1 hour more or maybe more than 1 hour. Then we can do it. I better stop here. I think this will be enough for you. If you have any question, I can answer. If don't, then I will finish it. and I will upload your slides to the system. Do you have any question?
Doctor,
Yes, please.
can you check the question I sent in the group?
I don't have my mobile, but I will check it and responding to you.
Okay, thank you.
Is that okay? Because
Yes.
I
Yes,
have to
it's
check.
okay.
I don't have mobile. Is in the ground floor.
It's okay.
In the first. Okay. First floor.
Thank you.
Do you have any question?
I don't have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any question about the exam or anything else? Because we have next week no class. If not, then I will finish it. Is that okay?
Yes, it's okay.
So is this everything, sir, for the exam? This is the last.
Hello?
Yes. Up to here. You have to study up to here until the tariff. The chapter 5 is included. Tariff. That's all. That's all. Non-tariff
Hello?
measures.
Prof,
Yes.
at least if you can tell us like this question is
Can
2
you?
marks, it's better because we do not know in the midterm which one is 2 marks and which one is 1 mark.
Which one is tomorrow?
And which one is 1 mark. We do not know during the midterm. So at least you can tell us. It will be better.
Your grades. Your
No,
grades.
You said question 20,
Your result.
25.
Your result, you mean?
No, I mean, hello?
Yes.
I mean, like, if you put the questions, at least if you can tell us, for example, question 1
But
to 3 is 2 marks, so that we know.
here in the PowerPoint.
No, sir. It means
In the
when
exam.
you're doing the exam, next to the question,
Because your voice.
can you include how many marks the question is?
Yes. I will put 1 marks or 2 marks. Okay, don't worry. Around 30 questions I will ask you, maybe 25, some calculations and some 15 to 20 multiple choice, okay? 1 point of each or maybe 2 points of each, and then calculation maybe 3 points because you want 60 points, isn't it? I will put you 60 or 50. How much
Yes.
you want? 60 or 15?
How many questions?
I think
Please, 60, Prof.
60
60.
questions.
Please, 60, 60
60,
points.
okay, 60
Please,
then is
60.
better. Okay,
60
60,
points. 60
30
points.
your exam and 20 then 110, okay?
Okay.
Okay, then I will put the points
Okay, Prof.
to the questions, don't worry. And I will put in the exam first the calculations and I will give you enough time, okay?
Okay,
Okay.
Prof.
Hello?
Thank
Prof,
you.
Prof,
Yes,
Prof,
yes.
the calculation questions, are they going to be multiple choice?
Yes. We don't have any other choice because when you are putting the answer to the system, you are not able to put correctly. Therefore, it is going to be wrong. Therefore, I have to put the answer into the answer multiple choice. Okay, but you have to
Okay, Prof.
remember there will be no
Okay,
flashback.
how many questions? How many questions?
Around 30,
He
I
said
don't know,
30,
30,
30
maybe
or thereabouts. He said 30 more
30. Yes, around 30. Around 30,
30, okay.
there will be 2 points or 3 points, some questions 3 points, some questions 1 point, some questions 2 points. It's like this, okay? But as I said to you, there will be no flashback to the questions. You have to answer and go back, go further. Okay?
Okay, Prof. Okay.
Okay, no problem. Prof,
Yes.
Prof,
Yes, I'm listening.
how many hours?
I don't know. I don't know. Around 70 minutes may be enough. We will see, okay?
Huh?
70 minutes maybe. You asking the timing?
Prof, yes,
1 hour
Prof,
and a half.
you give us 25 questions. 60 minutes, we could not finish. Now we are giving 30, 70 minutes.
Huh? What do you want? I don't
I
understand.
said you give us, I said you give us 25 questions, 60 minutes, we cannot finish it. Now you are giving 30 questions, 70 minutes.
What do you want? We will see, okay?
Prof,
We will do it.
at least,
If it is too much, okay. If it is too much, then I will make it 80, okay? 80 minutes. Don't worry, okay? If it is too much calculation, okay?
Okay.
Hadi.
question 3. At least
Wait,
question
sir,
3
but
minutes.
don't make it too much calculation, sir, please.
Okay, you want too much. Study hard, okay? Hadi görüşürüz.
No, we don't want too much calculation.
Okay,
Maybe
okay.
10.
Okay, I will do
Please,
it.
sir, we want to
Yes,
practice.
yes.
Not too much question.
Don't worry. Tamam. I will do the best. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you then. See you then
Okay.
after next week. Next week we don't have class, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Doctor?
Yes.
Can you download for us like 3 or
Yes,
4
I will
pages
upload.
for calculation example?
Yes, I will do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.